As of today, we are a little over 2 weeks away from the start of the 2020-21 NHL season. We can pretty much just call it the 2021 season though, because it starts in 2021 and ends in 2021. I'm sure by now most of you have, but if you haven't seen the new divisions just yet, here's what they look like after the realignment, and of course teams will only be playing other teams within their division. We have the East Division, the Central, the West Division, and then the North Division, which is what the NHL calls it, but I mean, it's the Canadian Division, that's what everybody calls it. I don't think I've heard anyone actually call it the North Division aside from the NHL. I'm really excited though. The fact that teams are only playing other teams within their division, I think we're going to see some rivalries build throughout the season for sure. Nonetheless, the point of this video, I'm going to start previewing and predicting the standings for this upcoming season, which teams are going to make the playoffs, all that type of stuff. I've done a standings prediction video heading into each of the past 2 seasons, and usually those videos get a good amount of dislikes and some angry comments, but when you're making a prediction video, you're usually going to piss off a couple of fan bases. You're not going to please everybody. Just remember, these are just my opinions, so if you disagree with my predictions, just be sure to get down in the comment section and let me know what yours are. As opposed to doing one big video predicting the standings and previewing each division, which is what I've done over the past couple of seasons, we're going to break it up into 4 different videos this year, so each division gets its own video, so that way I won't feel rushed and I can kind of go more in depth for every single team. Today we're going to be starting with the Central Division because I'd say it's one of the more weaker divisions thanks to Chicago and Detroit. Before we begin, be sure to go follow my social medias like Instagram and Twitter. Links to those will be down below in the description. And of course, if you are new to the channel and you want more NHL content just like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And now let's begin. Alrighty, so who do I see finishing last place in the Central Division? This may surprise some people, but then again, it may not. I actually have the Chicago Blackhawks finishing 8th in the Central, especially after the news that came out today. If you're not sure what news I'm referring to, Jonathan Toews, the Blackhawks captain, is out indefinitely with a medical issue, they called it. The Blackhawks put out a tweet on their Twitter linking a medical update on NHL.com. I recommend you go and read it if you have not already, but it sounds like some pretty alarming stuff, which is super unfortunate. So all the best wishes to Jonathan Toews. Let's hope it's not anything too serious and that we can see him back on the ice sooner rather than later, but it definitely doesn't sound like he's going to be back for the 2020-21 season, and obviously that is a massive loss for the Hawks. On top of the loss of Jonathan Toews, you have Kirby Dach, who underwent wrist surgery to repair his fractured wrist that he suffered in the World Juniors. He's expected to miss 4 to 5 months, so that's a huge loss as well. They traded away Brendan Saad this offseason in a deal that definitely didn't make the team any better. They lost Corey Crawford in free agency. He signed with the Devils. Now the goaltending situation for Chicago is Malcolm Subban and Colin Delia. Malcolm Subban had an .890 save percentage this past season with the Golden Knights, and Colin Delia has only played a total of 18 games in the NHL, none of them coming this past season. The whole 1920 season he was in the American Hockey League. The way that things are shaping up, it seems like the Blackhawks are going to be in for a pretty difficult year, but if you ask me, that may not be the worst possible thing. I know the Blackhawks and their fans are used to doing a lot of winning over the past decade, but if they can land another top 3 draft pick and get another big building block for the future, I think that would be huge for the Hawks. Moving along now, which team do I see finishing 7th place in the Central? This really shouldn't be a big surprise. I have the Detroit Red Wings. As you all know, I'm a Red Wings fan, and I like to be optimistic about my favorite team. They are going to be better. It would almost be literally impossible for them to be any worse, but they're still not going to be a good team. They're not going to be competing for a playoff spot unless some miracle happens. The Red Wings are still very much in the midst of a rebuild. Aside from the top line of Larkin, Mantha, and Bertuzzi, there isn't a lot of offensive firepower, and you're probably not going to get too much depth scoring. The blue line is most definitely still a work in progress. I really like the additions of John Merrill and Troy Stecher. They should bring a little bit of stability to the blue line, but they're not going to move the needle a whole lot. I definitely could see a scenario where Detroit finishes last place in the Central, behind the Blackhawks. The reason I'm giving Detroit the edge is because obviously Toews and Dach being out is super unfortunate, but it's goaltending. I have zero confidence in a Subban and Delia tandem, but for the Red Wings, I think a tandem of Jonathan Bernier and Thomas Greiss is gonna be at least okay, especially if Bernier can play like he did in the 1920 season, where he was arguably Detroit's most important player, and Thomas Greiss is a significant upgrade over Jimmy Howard. He's been real solid in New York over the past couple of seasons. So yeah, pretty much the biggest reason why I see Detroit finishing ahead of Chicago aside from the Hawks' injuries, of course, is goaltending. Continuing on now, my prediction for which team I see finishing 6th place in the Central. This is where I feel like I'm going to anger a bit of people, but I actually have the Dallas Stars. Yes, Dallas, the team that just made it to the Stanley Cup Finals, but like the Blackhawks, the Dallas Stars are going to be without some of their more important players for a while due to injuries. Ben Bishop had surgery on October 21st, and Tyler Seguin, their best forward, had surgery on November 2nd. The expected recovery time for both Bishop and Seguin at the time of their surgeries was 4 months, so they're not going to miss the entire season, which is obviously good, but they're going to miss a significant amount of time. Seguin being Dallas's #1 center, who led them in points this past season, that is obviously a massive loss, and Ben Bishop, well, he's been one of the best goalies in the NHL ever since he arrived in Dallas. When it comes to losing Bishop, though, luckily Dallas was able to re-sign Anton Khudobin, who himself has been incredible over the past couple of seasons and looked amazing in the 2020 playoffs, but in a condensed season where there's going to be a whole lot of back-to-backs, Dallas isn't going to be able to play Anton Khudobin every single night. They're going to have to rely on, I think it'll probably be Jake Ottinger a little bit. I very well could end up looking pretty dumb for predicting Dallas to finish 6th place in the Central Division. I guess we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. It's not that I think Dallas is going to be bad, I just think the teams ahead of them are going to be better. Moving on now to 5th place, so this will be the last team in the Central I have not making the playoffs because of course the top 4 from each division get in, and I have the Florida Panthers finishing in 5th place, so missing out on the playoffs. Florida's just a very frustrating team. It seems like heading into every single season, everybody expects Florida to, finally make that jump and be a good team, be in the playoffs. And this past season they weren't bad, they got into the play-in round, but they lost to the Islanders, so technically they didn't make the actual playoffs. And looking at the offseason that the Panthers have had, there's going to be a lot of new faces. Did they get better? I don't really know. Losing Hoffman and Dadonov is tough, but they replaced them with guys like Duclair and Hornqvist. You have the potential of guys like Owen Tippett and Denisenko coming in. For me personally, even though the Panthers lost Dadonov, Hoffman, and also Eric Haula, I forgot about him, I think their offense is going to be fine. I'd imagine they're still going to have a playoff caliber offense. I think for this team, it all just comes down to defense and goaltending. I like the additions of Nudavara and Gudis on the blue line. I don't think they're going to move the needle a whole lot, but they're definitely not going to make the Panthers any worse. And in net, can you get a bounce back season from Sergei Bobrovsky, a goaltender that you're paying $10 million a season for? If he doesn't bounce back and he has a year similar to the one that he just had, then this team is not getting anywhere near the playoffs, if you ask me. We know what Bobrovsky's capable of. He's won multiple Vezina trophies. If he can even just have a season where he puts up between like a 910 or 915 save percentage or something like that, then I think Florida should be competing for a playoff spot. So we'll see if Bobrovsky can pull that off. I have the Panthers in 5th place right now, and the 4 teams I have ahead of them, I just trust them a lot more than I trust the Panthers. Like I said earlier, it seems like we say the same stuff about Florida heading into every single season, and they always find a way to disappoint. Getting into the 4 playoff teams now, in 4th place I have the Columbus Blue Jackets, a team that this past season proved a lot of people wrong. They were still real solid despite the fact they lost to Zingle, Duchesne, Panarin, and Bobrovsky last offseason. John Tortorella really is one of the best coaches in the entire NHL. Whatever team he has in front of him, you can bet that team is going to at least be competitive and be very difficult to play against. And I don't think that changes this upcoming season. You still got a great young tandem in net with Jonas Korpisalo and Elvis Merzlikins, who both had a great 1920 season. The blue line, I would say, did get a little bit worse. They traded away Ryan Murray for a 5th round pick, and they also traded Marcus Nudavara for a draft pick to the Panthers. But I mean, with guys like Seth Jones, Zach Werenski, and David Savard still being there, I would say the Blue Jackets blue line is going to be just fine. And in terms of their forward group, a pretty quiet offseason aside from trading Josh Anderson to the Montreal Canadiens for Max Domi and a 3rd round pick. This past season, Josh Anderson really struggled, had like 1 goal in 26 games, struggled with injury. The fact that they were able to get Max Domi and a 3rd round pick for Anderson coming off of a season like that is pretty impressive. I just don't really feel like there's any reason to believe that the Blue Jackets can't have the type of season that they just had, or maybe even a little bit better. Continuing on now, finishing 3rd place in the Central, I have the Nashville Predators, who this past season had a rough year, were a bit of a mediocre team. They definitely weren't the powerhouse and one of the best teams in the Western Conference that we're so used to seeing them be. A lot of guys on the Preds had a bit of a down year. Matt Duchesne, Ryan Johansson, Victor Arvidsson as well. I definitely wouldn't worry about those 3 guys, though they're all more than capable of bouncing back. In terms of offseason moves for forwards for the Predators, I like them bringing in Eric Haula. I talked about that signing in my most recent video. They re-signed Mikael Granlund. They brought in Luke Cunnin as part of the Nick Bonino trade. They still have one of the best blue lines in the NHL, headlined by Roman Josi, who just won the Norris Trophy. In terms of goaltending, UC Saros was good this past season, Pekka Rinne was not so good. It would obviously be ideal if Pekka Rinne can bounce back and take some pressure off Saros, especially in a season where it's going to be really important to have two good goaltenders. Overall, I like the roster that the Predators have. I think they should be a very good team, so that's why I have them in 3rd place. Moving along now, 2nd place in the Central, the Tampa Bay Lightning. I don't have them winning the division. Now, if I made this video before the news came out that Kucherov is probably going to miss the entirety of the season, maybe this would be a little bit different, but no matter how good the team, when you lose your best player, who's one of the best players in the entire NHL, that's going to have an impact on your team. That being said though, the fact that Tampa Bay Lightning can lose Kucherov for a year and everybody still has them pegged as a top 2 team in the Central just speaks to how stacked Tampa Bay really is. They were able to get out of their cap crunch. A lot of that had to do with Kucherov going on the LTIR. The other day they traded Coburn and Paquette and a draft pick to bring on Marian Gabourik's contract, which can also go on the LTIR. The Lightning always just find a way to make things work. They went through the 2020 playoffs and won the Stanley Cup with their captain Steven Stamkos only playing a couple of shifts. If they did that, I see no reason as to why they can't make it through a regular season without Nikita Kucherov. They're obviously going to miss him, but they're still going to be a very, very good team. And now finally, finishing 1st place in the Central, winning the division. You guys already know, process of elimination. They're the only team I didn't talk about yet, the Carolina Hurricanes. The only thing that even slightly worries me about the Carolina Hurricanes is Peter Mrazek and James Reimer isn't necessarily one of the better goaltending duos in the NHL, but hey, they showed this past season that they can get it done, and even if they both play average or a little bit above average, I think Carolina is going to be an unbelievable team. We'll start with the D-core, and to me, it's the best the NHL has to offer. You got Jacob Slavin, Dougie Hamilton, Brett Pesce, Jake Gardner, Hayden Fleury, and Jake Bean. That is absolutely stacked. They have 3-star forwards in Teuvo Teravainen, Sebastian Aho, and Andrei Svechnikov, who is one of my favorite players to watch in the entire league. I like the depth that they have behind those guys. I think Jesper Foss was a sneaky good pickup for them this offseason as well. And behind the bench, you have Rod Brind'Amour, who is one of the very best coaches in the entire NHL. There really isn't a whole lot that I don't like about this Carolina team. Even though the Lightning will be without Kucherov, I still feel like it is pretty bold that I have Carolina finishing ahead of the defending champions, but I guess that just shows you how high I am on this Carolina team. So that was my preview and predictions for the Central Division. Quick little recap: we got Chicago at 8, Detroit at 7, Dallas at 6, Florida at 5, Columbus at 4, Nashville at 3, Tampa Bay at 2, and of course Carolina at number 1. And like I said at the start of the video, remember, these are just my opinions. I'm very curious to see what you guys think, so be sure to leave your predictions down below in the comment section. If you did enjoy the video, please be sure to leave it a like. As always, that is the best way to show your support. And most importantly, if this is your first time on the channel and you want more NHL content just like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I will talk to you all in the next video.